All right, what's up, lemon heads? Welcome to another episode of From the Yellow Chair. I'm Crystal, and today I'm sitting down. I have to say, he's one of my most favorite, yet honorary, yet fun clients here at Lemon Seed. I met him back in the day when we were working as a McWilliams and Son with Service Nation. Guys, so much fun, a fun family, a fun brand. I can't wait for you to hear about some of the cool things that he's done there in Missouri doing cool things for the heating, air conditioning, and geothermal world. So grab a lemonade, settle in. Let's discuss some cool ways about brand refreshes, the importance of strong brand identity, and even driving success in both your business and family. Let's sip some lemonade. All right, guys, listen, this is going to be quite the episode. There's lots of attitude and personality on this call. So let me just go ahead and tell you. But Rory Kruger is no stranger to the Lemon Seed family. Again, one of our favorites around here. But he had some great stuff going on, and we just felt like he'd be a great episode guest for us. And I said, "Hey, Rory, so what would you like for me to call you today? Like, what's your job title?" And he said, "Head bottle washer at Krueger in
That
Springfield, Missouri." So I was like,
someone's got to
"Okay,
do the dishes.
absolutely." So, Roy, why should anyone listen to what you have to say today?
Um, you know, Crystal, it all comes down to anything I'm going to say, it's already been said. It's just whether or not it's relevant. We're a small family-owned and operated business in the southwest corner of the state of Missouri. But I've been in this trade for 30 years. I've rubbed the elbows with Charlie Greer, Ron Smith, Matt Michelle. And it's those collective wholes of time spent with industry pillars, and I cataloged it. Mindy calls it my reams and reams of useless information. So
Well, but you
um,
guys have had good success there, and you and Mindy work in the business together.
we do. She is actually primary owner here. A little known fact: we're registered as a WBE, or Women in Business Enterprise. Her father retired from one of our local supply houses after 50 years in the heating and air conditioning department. I actually knew him before I knew her.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah.
Wow, well, I love that. I love that for you guys. Well, I love what you guys are doing there. I know you are pretty well known yourself in the industry. You lead some leadership calls and company calls for Service Nation. And everybody that listens to this, listens to my podcast very often, knows how much of a fan I am of Service Nation, just good business coaching all the way around. So I thought today we could talk a little bit about the power of a brand refresh. I know that when you came to Lemon Seed, you guys still were, you had this great name, Kruger, but you were really looking for more of an identity, maybe something that really differentiated you guys. So, what kind of got you to a place of thinking that you guys needed to give it a fresh look?
Well, we had been around for 15, 20 years at the time, and Kruger was certainly not a non-known name. We had grown more by referral than we had anything else. We actually started business as a mechanical contractor. Of course, when you say mechanical to a homeowner, that doesn't vibe. We would
Correct.
typically, you'd typically get phone calls for automotive repair or RV air conditioning. So it was just time to be able to think about what in the world of standing out, or what did our brand really, how did our brand fit what we had become over 20 years of being in business. And that was a great conversation with yourself and Emily, and at the time McKenna. And it was, what was Kruger? Who was it? And not just a name, but what was our culture? And it was old fashioned values, old fashioned service. I think Mindy was the one ultimately who said, "What does our brand look like?" And our brand looks like, if you envision a picture, was a Norman Rockwell painting, and that's where
Mhm.
Emily, in the graphic design side of you, your partner in Lemon Seed, that's where she came up with our wood grain siding on our
Mm.
trucks for our truck wraps, and that's become synonymous. It's on our uniforms. It's everything we've done. We've got our Paramount wood grain siding there. So
Well, and branding is storytelling, just using, the visual side of like truck wraps and logos and uniforms and things like that. But like you hit on two really cool points. So, number one is like, how does your brand make people feel? And does it reiterate what you are actually as a company doing internally? And if you, again, people that listen to me quite often know, I can really get on my soapbox about these shelved, like created brands that I see like people just churning out right now. And I love a good story. So, yes, visually, branding is super important. How it looks and how it reads, and all of those things are very important. But at the end of the day, and it sounds kind of corny, not everybody jumps on board with this, but a brand is how are people engaging with it, like in their everyday environments. And so, does it make them feel nostalgic, which is that whole Norman Rockwell uh, reference that you made? Or is it more of, do you want to be considered innovative and edgy? And so I really was proud of you guys because you really took a step back and was like, okay, how do we really want to make people feel about our company? So I'll be honest, Lemon Seed's design team, we can make anything look great. We just want to have like some motion behind it, some energy and some thoughts. And you guys took your time. Some contractors will rebrand, like build up a new brand in 3 weeks, but you guys really thought through it and took a lot of time to kind of make your decisions. But I think that that's because y'all naturally are thinking past a pretty logo, and it really had to reflect like who you guys are.
That is so true, Crystal. Because again, people do oh well, this is cool, it's neat, it's flashy. Nothing against the mascots that are out there because a mascot, if it fits your brand, then it fits. If it does not
Right.
fit your brand, don't try and force the mascot thought process. And we did, we tried, and that's where you said we took our time, really back and forth, in just what was it, what fit, and then ultimately it was the lemon, the lemon seed vibe with the wood grain siding. Our tagline, much to McKenna's chagrin, stuck, which was keep calm, call Krueger.com. uh, and it fit, and it went on the side of the truck, and it fit the wrap, and it fit the brand, and it's fit everywhere else. It's just easy to have that flow, because I think again, people sometimes they get caught up in flashy or catchy,
Or
and
trendy.
then or trendy, very trendy. One of the groups I moderate for, Service Nation, and people going through brand refresh there, and it was, one of them is being worked on a little bit, and it was like, okay, if you put that on the side of a van and the van drives down the road at 65 miles an hour, can you read it? Because if you can't read it, which his, graphic design that he was showing me, you couldn't have read. And it was just like, I won't be able to read it. I won't be able to see it. I won't remember it, because that's what you've got. You've got 2 to 5 seconds to see the side of a truck, or to see a billboard, or to see an ad, mobile. And so many times it's trendy. It's some fancy script, font, and it's just like sometimes simpler is a better plan.
Well, and again, our job, I feel like our job as marketing people and as branding people is to collaborate. Okay. So the best brands normally are just, they don't always look the prettiest. So, you know, our job is to collaborate and like literally pull that story out. So every single person, every single contractor has some sort of story, some sort of hook in their life that we can connect to build a brand around. I have two stories that I tell quite often. One of them is, we had a client comes on board, and I'm like, oh, this is a unique name. So tell me where you got this. And so, I mean, it was unique enough that I'm like, did you grow up on that street? Did you, where did you get this name? And he goes, oh, just random name generator. So I was like, random name generator. So, we had to literally go curate a story around something that wasn't even indicative of that person's history, their lifestyle, nothing. And then right now, I'm working with a business consultant that helps contractors when they're getting ready to sell their businesses. And so he reached out to us to help him refresh. And I said, well, tell me a little bit about it. And so I was like, oh, okay. So we're going to focus on adventure. And, he looked at me for a minute and he said, I've never thought of it that way. I'm like, this guy does a bunch of cool stuff. So, when you're building a new brand, as I keep going back to that wood grain that you mentioned, it's little little things entwined in your story and entwined in your look and your logos and your truck wraps that people identify with. Like you said, that wood grain piece that those of us that don't live there, we might have been like, oh, that's a unique look. But it's what is it? It's become your identifier there. It's what you guys are known. I think it's really starting to separate you guys for.
Yeah, I mean, again, if somebody goes to our callkruger.com website, you'll see that brand, you'll see the truck wrap again, and understand that everything you see visually from the Kruger brand, is a lemon seed concept, and it wasn't just an overnight process. It was working with Emily, working with your creative design team to be able to go, what does this look like? And the tweaks, every little piece we've done, yard signs or the web banner that you'll
Mhm.
see, the web page. Again, how do we move some of that around to make sure that the brand continuity is all there? And that's, I think people listening here, if you're fearful of the investment in hiring like a lemon seed to do a brand refresh, don't be fearful because it is a huge investment. It is the face of your company that will be forevermore. And so you decide to find somebody online who doesn't do branding, who doesn't do anything else. There are tons of those websites, I'm sure, that I've heard of that'll do logo design. But it's like, where's their success story? And it doesn't take long to look around Lemon Seed's website and their portfolio of work done and some of the iconic and epic brands they have created. So it is an investment that is so worth every penny.
Well, what do you think on the investment side? So, of course, the investment in building the brand, but what about operationally? What are some things that maybe you guys had to do operationally to prepare? So, I try to prepare our contractors like, okay, we have checklists, we have a launch guide, we have all these things to try to help people. And if you're changing your company name, that's a whole different ball game. But let's just say you're like a lot of people and you're just going to refresh everything. Where did you and Mindy start? Was it wrapping vehicles? Was it uniforms? And like, what was that investment kind of looking like?
Yeah. So, are you asking the dollars and cents question?
No, you don't really have to. I'm more like in the grand scheme of
Yeah.
things, like, because this is what a lot of contractors will tell me, like, oh, I have to wrap every vehicle, or, I don't
And
get,
you don't. Yeah, that's
you
just it. Okay.
don't. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
guided me in the right direction here. So when we first started, like I said, we were a mechanical, and we started back in the 90s, early 2000s. Wraps weren't a thing. The branding that we see today wasn't a thing. So what did we do? It actually started with our printer of all places, and they did my business cards. They were a blue linen business card with a foil embossed logo on them, which was actually just Tiffany ITC font. But they did that. And then, so what did we do? We said, well, let's just buy a blue truck. And so I did. I went and bought a blue truck. And then my sign guy said, I can do that in silver in the letters on the side of the blue truck. So then what did we do? We just ordered blue trucks and put silver letters on them. Today you go buy a white truck and you wrap it, but you wrap the entire thing. I think the infamous Matt Michelle said, anything but a white truck. I
Yeah.
don't care what color it is. Please do not drive a white truck with your name on the side of it. And so it was. So it was wrapped the whole thing. And so the iconic blue, obviously people can't see my shirt here, but my blue with the Kruger logo has been Kruger blue since day one. And so we incorporated that in a wrap, and it just, so that the investment was the wrap because that's the outward visual. My son, who also now works here, he says people don't see where I live, but they see what I drive. So they may not see your shop, they may not see your website, but they're going to see your truck, and they're going to see your
Mhm.
truck parked in your neighbor's driveway. They're going to see your truck parked at the grocery store, hopefully at the mall. It's shopping time, guys. Why not take the vehicle and park it in a prominent place so that people can see
Mhm.
your brand coming and going?
Yeah.
Um, but that was the investment, and it was an investment in uniforms, in getting everybody on board. But it didn't happen all at once, and it doesn't have to. And I think that's people's, again, you get a little nervous about, oh, I got to do all of this at once. You
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah, and a lot of people, this sounds very harsh, but it's just the truth of it. Odds are, I can tell you. So I see plenty of large revenue producing companies that have terrible logos. Okay, so contrary to what most marketers kind of want to put out in the streets here, I firmly believe that marketing is just a tool in your bag of tricks to be a successful operator. What really moves needles and what really differentiates companies is operators. People that are operating companies that are building efficient processes, that are driving revenue, that are taking care of their team, that are putting a good brand out there, a good little combination of those things. And so sometimes we get paralyzed with the idea that we can't, refresh our look because, well, my grandpa did this and he's known us for 50 years. Correct. But sometimes a refresh of the brand reinvigorates the brand and it adds a whole nother just buzz around your town with a new look and a new feel. People that do mascots, I always ask one question. If you're going to do a mascot, you're going to be actively involved in physically being a part of things. So if you're going to add a mascot, but you're not willing to go be in Christmas parades and be at downtown festivals and celebrate sports teams winning and be silly and be fun and take that mascot out into the public, it's really not worth creating this character because we're creating a character that really helps people identify closer with your brand. So if they never interact with a character, it's kind of a mute point. So I always encourage people, like you said, not every company is perfect for a mascot.
No,
So
it's not. And again, but you go back to the brand story, and that's we had the pleasure of hanging out in Charlotte at a summit earlier this year, and that was one of my opening discussions with the group is what is your brand story? Where did you start? What's your foundation? Because people will buy you, they will buy the story long before they buy the box. But we
oh
get
yeah,
so focused on the oval or the choo-choo or the whatever else it is. It's about the box, and the box is really an inanimate object. So
yeah,
it's really buying the brand, but that starts with that story. So set down. Where did you start? How did you get going? That's relevant to so many people, and especially in today's age. I mean, you can order an 85-inch big screen television, have it delivered in 48 hours or less to your front door now. There's
yeah,
no personality in that. There's no surface in that. It's just the World Wide Web. But
yeah,
it's like I like to tell the story, and it says on May 22nd, 1927, my grandfather, Frank Kubik, stepped foot on Ellis Island from Czechoslovakia at the age of 16. He put himself through college at Notre Dame, graduated at the top of his class, and went to Indiana University to get his degree in medicine. So I'm sitting here as a second generation person from somebody who immigrated from another country. And I'm sitting here on this podcast, being able to hang out with you. It's a story and everybody has one. So let's create your brand story.
absolutely. And tell it, and not be afraid of it. So, I love that. And y'all know we're passionate about branding, but then you have to take that brand and you have to actually implement it and start doing things with it. And so, remember those of you that are listening, so much of your actual market is not even in the consideration phase of using your services. So people don't need us all the time for heating and air conditioning, plumbing, electrical, roofing, whatever we're doing. Those of us that are in the home service, we live a long game, right? We are constantly running marathons to keep up with people in our market just for that one time that they need us or those couple of times that they need us. And so lots of tools, lots of techniques, but that brand makes it either make your life easier or harder. If you have a
Oh,
good brand, it makes your life a lot easier when it comes to just doing things to keep you top of mind. When you have a terrible brand or a very low interest brand of things that don't have a lot of personality, it's just harder. You have to work harder to keep up with people that have what a cool look or whatever's going on. So it's just an encouragement to contractors. Like most of the time, probably 75 to 80% of the time that I talk to new contractors, they need to refresh their brand. I mean, you know why? It's because you got started, right? A lot of you got started just by being a good technician, decided to go out on your own. You didn't want to think about it. So you called it, Crystal's Heating and Air Conditioning. And now you're a $5 million company, like, I probably should do something different than this. And so, don't be afraid of it. So I love that story. And I think the refresh has really worked well for you guys. Well, I
it
want to jump
has.
in. Good, good. Anything you regret or something you might would have done different?
I wish it had happened faster. As we've talked about, it took a while. And it was painful, particularly on you guys. Because it's one of those things I knew when we saw the brand come together. I knew that was it, but we went through some abbreviations of what we wanted. We went down the mass scout route, and it didn't. Nothing stuck. It wasn't sticking, and so it was some of the things we had done. Because don't think that because you're doing a brand refresh that means throw out the baby with the bathwater. You can keep good stuff, if you have good stuff. And the
Mm.
reality is, as Crystal, who you well know, there are a lot of people that don't have good stuff. It's just what they're
Yeah.
comfortable with, right?
Oh,
For
yeah.
us, we don't have a maintenance program. We don't have a service program. We don't have a spring or fall tune-up program. We have the Krueger Concierge Service Program. Why? Because people want to be taken care of like family. And if you've ever stayed at a good hotel with a concierge that takes care of those little needs, the restaurant reservations, the show tickets, that's important to people. Again, and that was part of our brand story was we're just going to take care of you like family. And so we didn't throw it away. We kept it and it's worked really well. And people go, I like that. It makes
Yeah,
me feel
well, and
comfortable.
it's a differentiator. It's a differentiator. So, maintenance clubs are used for consistent business, and so you guys created just a different take on that. And so there's lots of again, it reiterates the point even more. Every single company, I don't care what anybody tells you, every single company has their own unique, like a fingerprint, their own unique place in the market. It's just about discovering it and honing in on it and learning from it, and then using your marketing and branding skills to then be a great operator. It really is a great way to differentiate yourself with a it just again, I go back to this is a process that is a marathon, not a sprint. So some people are
Hmm.
like, well, and now I'll tell you another thing. When you find entrepreneurs that know what they're doing, they've had really good success. They can start from there, start opening all kinds of stuff. So, if let's say they rebranded heating, air conditioning, and they sold it, the next thing you know, they're opening their own plumbing, electrical, roofing, landscaping, pest control. Because once you learn the strategy of top of mind awareness and you figure out cash flow to do that, you'll see them just popping up things and like all of a sudden they're at $5 million in their second year of business. And people are like, I just don't know how people really push their revenue. And I'm like, it's an operator thing. It's a good understanding of how to like push and motivate. So it's very interesting. So okay,
Yeah,
another thing I wanted to step into, which because this is just a little different, is you guys have a geothermal like push,
we do.
right? Okay,
We do.
so it's just a little different. And so sometimes I always am like, heating and air conditioning and things like that. But the geothermal side, how do you guys like educate clients? How have you coached your team? Like, what do you think you have to do a little differently to keep geothermal like education up?
Yeah, so we come at the geothermal or ground source heat pump world, simply from an energy saving standpoint. Is there an environmental standpoint? 750 trees saved, one fossil fuel car taken off the road? Absolutely. We've been at this over 20 years, so we've certainly become the predominant player in Southwest Missouri. We have a multitude of other companies who are brand aware in Springfield who make referrals to us for geo,
Mm.
because it is a specialty and it is something that takes a specific skill set. I will challenge any HVAC contractor out there that they too can be a geothermal expert because it is not rocket science. It's just a specific skill set and training to do that. But what it's done is it's isolated us into that high performance world of HVAC. And so it is ductwork testing, it is blower door testing, it is air leakage testing. It's all of those things that revolve around, a total energy portfolio in a home. And when you say, "Hey, I'm going to live in a 3,500 square foot house, and I have a sub $100 a month total electric bill," and then your neighbor who lives in the exact same house goes, "My bill is $400 to $600." We're saving a ton of money because it's positive cash flow. It's just a money saving thing. And it's a life cycle thing for us. So there's no outdoor units with geothermal. So you can put your deck anywhere. You can have your master bedroom door anywhere. And people, once they see that, it's just kind of like, oh, this is great. I'm building on acreage, and that's the last thing I needed was a place to stick my crazy air conditioner outside. So
Yeah, yeah, and I just think, like, I like the unique side of that, mainly because, it just takes intentionality of making sure that you're promoting those products, correctly, and that you're educating customers, but also, like, educating your own team on the
Mhm.
traditional side of HVAC, but then, of course, the geothermal side, and I know sometimes it can be challenging. Well, and I know in my notes here, it said that you helped install this in, like, one of these a huge house. There was some kind of little story you have to go along with this.
Well, so we're Southwest Missouri, a little bit south of us, is a little town called Branson. In between there is one of the 10th largest homes in the world. It's a tick over 72,000 square feet,
Holy cow.
which is the size of your average Walmart supercenter, by the way.
Oh,
But the gentleman who built the home had a technology for a reinforced insulated ICF block that could withstand bomb blasts. Is where the technology came from. But then they thought about that and he said, "Well, what about a school? What about a school in Tornado Alley? What about health centers? What about building infrastructure that is potentially subject to damage?" Well, the reality is he had built this product, but he didn't have it in application. You know, you've got it on a drawing board, and so he said, "Well, why don't we just build a living laboratory and demonstrate what the possibility is of this product?" So that's what he did. And so he built the Pensmore Castle is the name of the property, Pensmore, and he said, "I want to do this, and I want to heat and cool it really efficiently too." It is very ultra insulated, obviously. And so we heat and cool all of that space with only 40 tons of
oh.
geothermal. But it was an engineering feat. A lot of piping, a lot of pumping, a lot of pumps, I should say. But ultimately, it turned out to be a very great project to work on.
I love that.
So
Well, I'm a fan of Branson.
yes,
My
I
little
do.
East Texas heart loves Branson, Missouri. I call it Jesus Vegas.
It is. It is. It
It
is.
is, and my kids love it. So I tell this story quite often. We were out in the middle of the ocean on a beautiful cruise going to Costa Maya. And there's my kids in a hot tub, little, fake drinks in their hands. And they're like, Mom, when are we going to Branson again? And I'm like, oh my gosh. But my kids love sight and sound theater. They love the racetracks. They are the little go-kart racing and stuff like that. So I have a
Yeah.
heart for Branson, but beautiful country. But I love that story too, because, I think it's important that we tout sometimes like some cool stuff that we've done for our companies and for our products. And I've talked to a couple of contractors that have installed things in famous people's homes, and there's something kind of fun, like your team can celebrate that, and it's a cool accomplishment. So, all right, Rory, I'm going to ask last few questions, and it's more about working in the business with your family. And you've mentioned it a couple times. You've got a couple family members that work with you. What do you think the secret is to let's just go staying married and working together, and then just like building wealth together? Like, what does that look like for you guys? And like maybe some tips and advice.
Well, so good friends of mine, Justin and Kristen Dees, they wrote a book, when your business partner is your spouse. Obviously, that's a newer book, but the foundation or fundamentals in there is defining your lanes in business. I deal with the service side of the business. I deal with the operations side, field operations. Mindy oversees the office side, and she oversees the financial side and the dispatch side, working with CSRs. And it's very much we stay in our lanes. It doesn't mean that we don't discuss everything as a family, because we do. But it's very much, this is my task, this is my job. If I need advice or want help, which I do, and encourage people to do that. One of the things I do, on an annual basis is probably read north of 40 books.
Oh,
And so it's, what are you spending your time with? And we share that openly and even within our team. And it's, one of the sayings our team will say is a year from now, two things will change: the people you spent time with and the books you've read. So choose the people very, very wisely. And so it's being able to put those people in the right seats in the right bus, and it works. Does it work well all the time? Nope. I think everybody would call me a fool or a liar if I said it worked well all the time. But it really did help to be very decisive in what our roles are at Kruger.
well, and I say that, I grew up working for my dad and my brother, my grandpa, my aunt, and you just have to understand who's who, right? Like you're saying, who's who. So people say, "You work for your brother." Well, I don't have to be the boss. Now, listen, anybody that knows me knows I'm a little bossy, so that's comes with the territory.
Nah.
Not me, talkative and bossy. I know it shocks everyone, but literally started the podcast so I could talk to myself. But at the end of the day. I had to come to the conclusion that like Trey was the boss. And so at the end of the day, I had to take yes or no's. He was collaborative, but somebody had to be the final decision maker. And so this concept that, oh, we can all collaborate and work together is a good way to like stall progress. So just
It
kind of
is.
going in, who's the boss? And it doesn't even matter like people that chase titles normally can't earn them through action. So that's always a hard thing for me. Like if you've got to tell me that you're the boss, you're probably not.
Mhm.
And so it's about earning, the respect of each other, but it still can take a toll. I know one time Emily was even telling me one time she said, one of the things that was hard because she and her husband had, Real Graphics, a print and design company before she came over and worked with me at Lemon Seed, and they still have Real Graphics. Just he runs that. But she was telling me one time, she said, "Man, a hard conversation is when your husband is trying to decide between who's right or wrong, me or this other person." And she's like,
Yeah.
these are some hard nights, but I think they have really good respect for one another, and you have to have a business mindset. It can be definitely a challenge. Well, Rory, anything else? I always like to ask this question too at the end. If there's a contractor listening to this that's very much like they're new, they're green, and they're ready to take off with their business, less than $1 million, what are a couple pieces of advice that you would give them?
I would give them the advice to sit down and write your brand story out. I would second pick up the book The E Myth by Michael Gerber, and read the E Myth and make sure you're not living the E Myth, which is we're entrepreneurs and we're doing a technician's job and suddenly we hang a shingle and here we go, and then we get caught up in being a technician and trying to run a business and we forget, oh, where that brand story was. And we get busy, and like you said, sub $1 million, and that's where everybody gets stuck usually. Um, so brand story, E-myth, to find your focus and put some goals on the wall. Where are you going? Because we wouldn't, when we all drive with GPS now, we used to drive with these things called atlases or maps. Some of us are
Yeah.
old enough to remember those, but you didn't just get in the car and head west. That's a movie. You had a destination and you knew how you were going to get there. So you're in a spot now, you're going to grow. What does it look like in 6 months? What does it look like in a year? What does it look like in 18 months? And start planning that. And you might all, again, we're all contractors, doing contracty stuff. Ask for help. Find somebody to talk to.
Find a group. Yes.
A lot of groups out there. I've had a lot of luck with Service Nation, but it's just find a group, find somebody to mentor you, to guide you, because there are people much like myself who are an open book and saying, I've done that. That didn't work well. This is what it did do. This is why it worked well. So find some help, and then last and not least, know your numbers. I cannot
Mm.
stress enough how many contractors they got money in the bank, but they don't know how to price. They don't know where their cash position is. They don't know where break even is for the year. You start mentioning financials, and they just blaze over like a deer in the headlights. Um, but no, you have to know your operational numbers. There's just no way around it.
Yeah.
There are
Math
several
before marketing.
Big math before marketing. Exactly. But how do again, you can have a great brand. You can hire Lemon Seed. They can do your brand refresh. They can do your complete brand. If you're sitting here going, you know what, we've been in business for a while and we're just not succeeding, a complete rebrand is not a bad thing. And you may have the cash to write that check, but you better know how you got the cash to begin with.
Mm.
We don't want to have a great brand without the revenue goals, or knowing what you need to do. So know your numbers.
Absolutely, and I love knowing your numbers. Those are just key things. Now that I look back, like, man, even when I started Lemon Seed, like, man, knowing our numbers would have been a lot. We should have known them differently and better. And so, I just think there's so much power in today's episode. Like little nuggets that we've been pushing out there are great for contractors that are just ready to go to the next level. Whether that's you going from 5 to 10 million, 10 to 20 million, that's going from less than $1 million to your first million, wherever you are in the grand scheme of things, these good marketing and business practices that we talked about do not waver. They do not change. The scale just becomes different. So, you should always be working on your brand. You should always know your numbers. You should always be seeking wise counsel. You should always be constantly focused on the business, not in the business as much. And so, well, Rory, thank you so much for visiting with me
No
today.
problem. Thanks for having me. It's always good to sit in the yellow chair and
Absolutely.
drink some lemonade.
Oh, well, there we go. There we go. And listeners, if you've been thinking about a refresh for your brand or exploring new ways to market your business, I encourage you to visit lemonseedmarketing.com and see how we can help you strategize and build out a brand story. And also, don't forget to check out Krueger and see their awesome wood grain look that they've got going on and some of the really cool things that they do. So, thank you for listening to From the Yellow Chair. If you enjoyed this episode, leave us a review. Make sure you're following us. Thanks for sipping some lemonade. We'll see you next time.